Versa podcast.
What is up, you guys? This is Tristan Mitten with the Versa podcast, where we talk all things business, life, and current events that's going on. I have here with me my co-host, Zach Brown. No, he does not sing for the Zach Brown Band. And today we're going to be talking about mental health and some of the problems that we're seeing kind of throughout the world right now. So, Zach, what do we got, man?
Mental health is probably one of my favorite topics because it's so applicable in the world we live in today.
The first thing I want to ask, just a quick question on the spot for Tristan,
and it's just simple. It's what do you think we would do if smartphones went away tomorrow?
I think the world would go into mayhem. I mean, even I'm at fault of it, right? I don't go probably unless I'm like taking a shit. I mean, even then I'm on my phone.
Exactly.
But I don't
That's
go.
When I'm on my phone the most.
I don't think I go maybe 5 minutes a day with my phone within 2 feet of me.
Exactly.
I mean, it's literally, Gary Vee says it all the time. It's an appendage to our bodies. It's something that we can't live without because we're so reliant on them. And it's kind of crazy because without them, I mean, we wouldn't know how to get to the movie theater. We wouldn't know how to get to the grocery store. Just the fact of the social aspect of our phones, like social media, Instagram, even TikTok now. I think it's such an important aspect of our lives that I think people would go insane without them. I mean, it's crazy, but
it's crazy to think of life like before. Like how did you get? Like how did our parents get around? Like
I think
maps.
about that all the time.
Yeah, like it's crazy. I mean, we went on some family trips growing up, and I remember like we did a trip to the coast, and I literally remember like we were in my the family car, and I remember my dad told my mom get the map out, and it's like this big map. It's like this big, and you're like trying to find the whole dash. You're trying to find the spot where you are and where you need to go, and now it's like I literally just put in. Well, living in Phoenix, like I literally put in. I know how to get around, but I literally put in maps like everywhere I go, just because there's so many routes you could take, and you get there different times, and so I'm always using it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. But yeah, to go into so I was reading an article the other day, and it was talking about just that, like phones. It was talking about how there's an addiction that no one's talking about, and the addiction is called consumption. It's like a state of consumption that we're in, and it's kind of crazy to think about. But when you sit down, because we're so like immersed in it, but as far as like just our life, like you're constantly, if you're not like working and like avidly like doing something, you're constantly like scrolling through social media. When you get home, like you flip on Netflix, like we're constant, like the TikTok, the social media, YouTube, like we're constantly consuming something, even down to like the more intense aspect, like the raw aspect of like pornography, like we're constantly watching all of this stuff. And this, in the article I was reading, it was talking about how it's changing our brain, like different from the way, like people our age 10 years ago. We've got these brain receptors that are just being trained to react to these things. So now, like you're scrolling through social media, and there's so much content where you're scrolling through. You see something sad, something happy, something sexual, whatever it may be, and our brains are constantly seeing this, and it's releasing dopamine for these different things on such a high level over and over again, and it's training our brain to, I don't know if the word is like that, like to like those things, but it's training us to react to those things. So then over and over, like that's just how our brain is trained, so it's addicted to those things. And so then even myself, like I think like you read these articles that are like, don't get on social media like an hour before bed or whatever, because it just puts your mind in this state where you can't relax. And so it's just interesting to me. I mean, like between us, I mean, like we hustle, we grind, we like to work, we're always busy, but it's crazy how aside from that, like with the way that this all works, is there's a lot of people that are so addicted to these devices and that state of mind, and their dopamine receptors are linked to that that there's so many mental illnesses, and basically people that like they have trouble sleeping at night, they have trouble staying motivated at work, it's just this they're addicted to this like temporary like pleasure and happiness in life that it's just hard to be like normal. And like we were talking about, it's crazy because to think about it, like it's pretty new. Like to me, like growing up, like I mean even junior high school, I think like 5-10 years ago, it wasn't like that as much. You know what I mean? Like
we had flip phones.
Yeah, like my phone growing up didn't have internet, and it almost seems so long ago. But yeah, like when I was, even junior high, I mean I was involved in sports, and so it was like I didn't have a phone. I just remember like I'd be out on the basketball court like practicing shots if I was bored, or I'd be, exercising or something. But even to the extent of like even when you're sitting on the couch bored at home, like your parents would be like, go do something, go ride your bike, go throw the ball. Where now, if you're sitting on the couch, you're being handed an iPad, you're being handed a device.
Well, I can't even tell you the amount of times that, like growing up, we were vandalizing people's houses, we were TPing people, like we were having a good time. And those are memories that I'll have for the rest of my life. I mean, those were some of the best times that I can remember. And so, I mean, we're kicking it with our buddies, and it's like, hey, like, remember that time we ding dong ditched that lady and she like chased us around the neighborhood.
Yep.
And so like those memories, like my brothers, all they do, like their social life is to be playing games like Fortnite, Call of Duty. And they play these games with their friends, and that's like their Friday night out, right? And so it's kind of sad, honestly, to see, a lot of kids nowadays, they don't get to experience what we got to experience when we were kids, and it's a different experience. I mean, they get to socialize in a different way. But I mean, I've been in the gaming world, and I've gamed and done those things, and I can tell you for a fact that I've had way better experiences and way more memorable experiences from being outside, doing things that, all my senses can feel. I can go outside and I can, jump in a pool. Like we would literally wakeboard in the canals by our house out in the desert. Like we would literally pull up a dirt bike and we would like wakeboard in the canals. And that's like, and like you look back at those things and it's like, those are such good memories that I have that probably not many kids nowadays will ever have. So I think it's sad, honestly. If you think
even
about
like
it in
the
that way.
dating aspect, like dating. I think of like us, like I mean, when I wanted to like ask a girl out when I was like high school, I mean, it was like you had to get creative, right? You're like, how am I gonna ask this girl? Like maybe she like worked at a restaurant, and you're like, I'm gonna go, eat there and like try to find a sneaky way to ask her. Like you get like creative, where now it's an app.
Slide in the DMs.
Yeah, you DM someone. Like I feel like the confidence level of people, like just like self-confidence, has like gone way down because you can. It's all done on the internet. It's all done on apps, and so you can like alter and edit the photo and make yourself look good if you don't.
Yep.
And number two, you don't have to have as much confidence because it's a message. And I mean, even like a side note of that's the world we live in as far as like. Even it's so interesting how like I like to call. I'm a caller. I don't 100%. Like to text. Yeah. Even my fiance she'll text me a lot, and I'll literally give her a hard time. I'll be like, call me more. Just because it's different.
Yeah.
And even like on a business standpoint, a lot of people, to set up like a business or a business meeting that you call and you chat and you set it up. Now it's like, hey, just text me.
Yeah.
So it's like we're just the phones. It's just changed the way that we live. It's crazy.
And let's put it into context. So, I mean, if we just take a look at the average daily consumption of just the average person and how many hours they're putting into their phones a day, this is just us. We just searched this online. But the average person spends about 4.8 hours a day on their mobile phones, according to app monitoring, and that's not including work time spent on their phones. So that's just social, doodling around, gaming, whatever it is. It's 4.8 hours a day. And of those 4.8 hours a day they're spending on their phones, 147 minutes per day. That's just over 2 hours a day they're spending just on social media. So if we break that down, I ran the math. So just over 2 hours a day times 365 days a year, that's 730 hours a year that we're spending just on social media.
That's
and
crazy.
if we divide that by 24 hours in a day, that's 30 days a year. Just 30 days a year straight that we're spending just on social media. And I think the root of mental illness and the root of people saying that they have anxiety and depression, which I believe is real, but I think the vast majority of people that claim that they are depressed, that they have anxiety, it all roots from social media. And honestly, it's a fake mental illness. And because at the end of the day, we're comparing ourselves to these influencers and these people that have, these unrealistic lives that they put out on social media that is just not real. And so I think that if we're continuing to kind of go down this path of social media and posting and trying to live this perfect lifestyle, that we're never going to be able to live in reality, where in reality, everybody is depressed at some point in their lives. I mean, we all go through shit, and we all have times in our life that's more stressful. I mean, me and my wife, we're currently have a baby on the way, and we're expecting in like 4 to 5 months, and we're moving into our new house, and we have all of our stuff in storage. Like, it's a stressful time in our life. But I think if I'm constantly comparing myself to somebody on Instagram of, they live in this big house and this guy's super ultra successful and they have tons of kids, and if I'm comparing myself to all these different people on social media, then I'm never going to be happy, right? So I think we have to understand that over time, we have to change our mindset of, just because what we see on social media is everybody's living this perfect lifestyle, it's just not realistic.
No, yeah. Well, it's interesting how many of those like influencers and people over the last like influencers maybe like 3-5 years ago that have done it, experienced it, and then have now come out and said how unhappy they are, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, even down to like actors, actresses, like a lot of people that
look at how many actors like commit suicide or OD or
exactly.
whatever, and they have all the money, they have
they're
all
trying
the
to
praise.
live up to this expectation.
It's
yeah, like a lot of these influencers, and I think that's what's crazy is that you see the hype and you see the fun and you see like these influencers that are getting all this free stuff and having so much fun, but again, it kind of goes back to the very beginning of what we were talking about. Is it's just temporary. Like that's not lasting happiness. Like, which is why I respect. I mean, I do follow a lot of influencers that are super real and raw, and they post like things you're talking about. Like their post, it's not the day to day. It's not like the bikini pics. It's not like the quick stuff. It's more of like having a baby, like getting a puppy. Like I like that's cool. Like that's real. Like that's real life events that are happening. Stress, they'll talk about stress. There's influencers out there that are doing it the right way. There's definitely more, I think, that are doing it the wrong way. Yeah. That are doing it for the fame, the fortune, to get the following, to get the money. You know what I mean? But that only lasts so long. It's cool in the beginning, I'm sure. Cool cars, cool trips, but that happiness it only lasts so long.
For sure. So kind of the next point we wanted to touch on. And this is crazy. So I mean, this is about a college in Utah that they're holding this class about pornography.
It's crazy.
And this pornography kind of goes right along into mental illness, dopamine, and all the things that come with those addictions we're talking about. So literally, this is straight from Deseret News. This is a big news organization out of Utah. And it says, Westminster College standing by plans to offer elective pornography studies class despite social media onslaught. Candace Owens even went out to tweet, and she says, I thought this was a joke. It isn't. This is a pornography class that you can enroll in at Westminster College in Salt Lake City. The class description reads that porn is as American as apple pie, and students will watch pornographic films together and discuss sex as an art form.
It's crazy.
Bro.
Where's the world going, right?
It's fucked up, bro.
It's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, like, just that alone, like, that tells you that the world is going to a place that's not good at the end of the day. I mean, like, if you were to tell people 20, 30 years ago, hey, let's have a pornography class and let's study it as an art form and let's recognize it as traditional as apple pie. I mean, you can't even imagine the backlash that those people would have gotten.
Yeah.
And it's not even, I mean, there's a professor out there that thought, oh, this is a good idea to have this class. But then he had to send it to get approved by the board at that school. And it had to go down this line of approvals. And essentially, it's not just one person that's approving this. This is a group of multiple people that were like, oh, this is okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I was talking to Val even the other day. That's my fiance. And we were chatting about how she's from Argentina and she's graduating next week. But as far as it's like her second to last week of college, she was doing some study on the Constitution, and it was really cool. Like, she was hyped about it. Like, she's actually really interesting. Like, I love learning about it. But she was like so surprised that she's graduating next week, and this is the first time she'd ever been in a position to like learn about the Constitution and like true like American rights and like history and like, you know, Declaration of Independence, like all this stuff that's like core values of like America that are are kind of pushed along the wayside in college now. And she loved it. She was like super interested in it, but it's so crazy how like something like that could be put over. Like, she's graduating college, and I went to college, but I did not leave knowing anything about like money, like how to invest, how to put money aside for my future, how to file my taxes. Like, I didn't learn anything that like real world, like hardcore, like stressful situations, how to handle that in life with like money. I learned math. I learned like business math, like some pretty hardcore stuff.
When are you ever going to use that?
Yeah. Like, have I used it? No. You know, have I used any of that stuff? Like, yeah, I loved economics. Like, there's things about like economics and history that I learned that I loved. But yeah, to think about like how a pornography class and the history of pornography per se, like how that's going to add value to society and these college students, like why?
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. But it's real. It's real. You guys can look up the article. I'll put it up on the screen.
And honestly, the craziest thing, like I listen to a lot of people, a lot of podcasts. I mean, a lot of people in business. And the craziest thing about it is it does briefly, I read the article, it does briefly talk about how there was some backlash and some tweeting and some things. But at the end of the day, like, ultimately, there's probably not a lot of people out there like that are against it or wouldn't want it that are actually speaking up anyway, right?
Right.
Like the amount there, I'm sure there's a few people that maybe their kids attend that school that spoke up, but on a large scale, this is on a major news station, and how it's like not being, you know, blown up or talked about or anything like that. There's we're kind of like designed, and like from the very beginning, how with social media we look at things, we scroll, we move on. Like, very few of us are able to unless you're like a high profile person that has a say, are able to say anything like that or feel like you have a say. Like,
well, bro, somebody that I absolutely love is Andy Frisella, and he says it perfectly. And kind of what you're touching on is how the media portrays the right and conservative people as the silent majority, and Andy basically explains it as bullshit.
Oh, for sure.
Because at the end of the day, the people who are standing for, you know, what good, moral, even just people that believe in God, believe in is a silent majority. And what it is it's a narrative, I think, that they're playing to keep us quiet, right? And so I think that at the end of the day, like, he best explains it as, if you're a silent majority, then you're a part of the problem, right?
For sure.
If you're not standing up for bullshit like this, and it's like, you know, what do you stand for? What do you believe in? If you really stand for it, if you really believe in it, then that's something that you should stand up for at the end of the day.
And a big thing is the schools nowadays of like from kindergarten up. Like, I think when I literally remember like elementary, like junior high, like early school years, like pretty vividly still. And I remember like the first thing you did, like you literally elementary school, you got to school, you stood, said the Pledge of Allegiance, like there was like this structure where now that's offending people, and so like they've instead of sticking to those core values like from hundreds of years of like America and all this stuff, that so a couple people get offended, so then they take it down. We can't do that anymore.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So a lot of these traits and these things are being taught on a mass level nationwide to kids, and so it's kind of scary. You know, you more so now. Like you used to send your kids to school and not worry, and now you wonder where your kids are going, what they're being taught, what they're being said, or what's being said about them. And Andrew Frisell, like I was telling you, like he just did a podcast how he went and met with the Trump family, which is cool. Like he kind of had opinions on both sides. Like he didn't know if he like agreed with things that they said, and didn't know with the whole presidential stuff. But like what you just said, like all that aside, like just as a people, like as a family, like he met with him, and he even admitted he's like I was kind of wrong about these people. Like I almost listened and trusted the media a little bit too much of what they were saying about these people. And he's like, I went and chatted with them. I sat down with them. I shot guns with them. I spent a weekend with them. And he's like, they're really good people. Like the media portrayed them wrong. Like whether I support them or not and support their values or support their agendas. He's like, they're really good people, really nice, genuine family, which I respect. And he's like, the media portrayed them wrong, and I don't like that. Like whether they supported their agendas or not, they were wrong about them as people. And so which is really cool about him. Like he looks a lot more into like that, like the core of like who you are, and less of what the media is going to portray about you.
Yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, we don't have anything else, right? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Like it's so interesting how we just live in this world where, even if it's interesting, we've talked about the pornography, like all these things, even if things are brought up and there is like an opposing side, it's so interesting to me how society is so like they're so stuck in their ways that even if factual evidence came out saying that something was bad or wrong, people still wouldn't accept it.
Yeah.
Like I was telling Tristan, I saw a TikTok. I was scrolling the other day, and I saw a TikTok about a doctor who came out, and he's basically releasing these studies about how AirPods are like bad for you. They emit cancer-causing frequencies, whatever it may be. It's not proven, obviously, but he's in a research stage of like how so many of us constant. I mean, because I think AirPods, like I don't. I'm always working. We're working a lot now, so I don't have them in as much. But I think like back in like previous jobs, like I'm making phone calls a lot. I'm like on the go. Like I had them in all the time. Like there's times in my life where like my AirPods are probably in like 60% of the day, and he's now coming out saying that he could be relating some cancer or some illnesses to them, and anyway, like everyone always says like, oh, I jump to the comments, right? So I jumped to the comments, and there's like thousands of comments of people saying like, even if it did cause cancer, I wouldn't take them out.
Yeah.
Even if it was a harmful thing, just because we're set in our ways, we're glued to it. It is what it is, and our brains have been wired to think this way. And so I think it's going to take a lot to like change society in the world we live in today. There's going to need to be a lot more influencers that jump this route towards like mental illness and helping people realize, because we're now wired that way, right? It's like you can't just tell someone, hey, like do this. Like we're now wired differently, so we're going to disagree.
Well, remember when the group of doctors that came out and said that there was certain medications that would fight COVID-19 better than most of the vaccines that are out today, which are not guaranteed. And then they made that post on Facebook about it. and they said hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, those medications would essentially almost cure COVID. And Facebook basically took it down in like the first day that it was up. So I think right to your point, I mean, the media, they don't want us to know, and they don't want us to, I think, stand for what they know is right as well.
For sure.
And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's we can't be the silent majority.
No,
exactly. We have to stand up for all the bullshit that's going on.
Yeah. And to kind of put kind of like finish it off and chat. Like I used to have a poster in my house, and I think a lot of us have seen it. It's all over social media, but it says "you versus you," and I used to love that. But then this week, through some research I was doing, I actually saw another poster that it was like kind of contradicting that one, that said "you versus the world," because at the end of the day, even if you're not comparing yourself with other people in other situations, you yourself is competing with what's changing in the world, right? And you have to be strong enough and have enough confidence and backbone to say no to those things. And we've talked about it, but not to go like on the religious side, but there's good and bad, right? There's God, there's Satan, there's good, there's evil. And so even with ourselves, like we internally have to, like, as much as like the media, our friends, people, family tell us something is right, like we ultimately have to make the decision of what's right and wrong. And it's going to be hard. Like social media kind of trains us to kind of bend over and listen.
Well, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I posted this on my story the other day, and it's a scripture that talks about it a little bit, about being silent.
Yeah.
It just says, whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I also confess before my Father which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Which is, I mean, right there, it touches right along of being silent is just as bad as supporting the problem.
And that's in all things. That's that's obviously like religious context, but that's like in work, like stand up for yourself, in your marriage, in your relationship, like communicate. Like it's simple.
Well, even in, you take law, guilty by association. I mean, it's a universal law at the end of the day. So yeah, no, 100%. But yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy stuff.
Well, we appreciate you guys. That's pretty much it. That's all we got for you guys. But definitely appreciate you guys listening. If you guys liked what we said today, share with your friends, family. Help us get this word out. And like I said, we got more to come.
We'd love to hear other people's opinions too. Like send me a DM. Like if you think that something that we said was different, we'd love to talk about it. Because there's just the world's changing literally every day, and there's so much. So share this, like it, and if there's anything you'd like to add, let us know.
Sweet. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.